Today, we're going to talk about some of the ratios that you use to utilize to be able to determine how you're doing on your commercial real estate portfolio and to compare different properties and what you might be willing to pay for them. Today, the first one we're going to talk about is ROI, or what you will hear referred to as return on investment. And so what that is your net profit that you get after you sell the investment divided by the cost, or how much you put into the investment. So an example would be, say you sold your property for $200,000. That would be the cost, or what it is that you sold it for. And you had paid $180,000 for it. So 200 minus 180, or 20,000, is your profit, divided by the 200,000 cost, would give you a 10% ROI, return on investment. So over time, what you do is you look at investments and you try to, when you go to buy something, you try to figure out what is it that I'm going to try to sell it for, divided by however much it is that I'm going to have to pay for it, or the cost, or my initial investment in it, or the cost of everything. Like if you bought it for 150 instead of 200, but had to put $50,000 in the property, getting your overall cost up to 200,000. All of that needs to be figured in when you're trying to determine what your rate of return, or your ROI, is on the investment. There are many key ratios for people to look at when they look at commercial real estate investing. Many of those actually key off of one important number, and that is your net operating income, or what you'll hear called the NOI. Now, your net operating income is your gross income from the property minus any expenses that you incur. So that would be things such as your taxes, your insurance, any management fees that you have, any repairs, and any other costs associated with carrying that property. So you take your gross income, reduce it from your expenses, and that gives you your net operating income, or NOI. That key ratio is what's used many times in determining how your investment is performing. Now, once we have our NOI, we can really do quite a bit of calculations to be able to determine and how well our investment's performing. And also, it will help us to be able to determine what we can expect as far as being able to sell the property in the future, and also what we can be able to expect as far as return. So one of the key figures that you get once you have the NOI is you take the net operating income divided by the price, or the cost that you have in the property, and that gives you your cap rate, or your return on the investment. So the example in this is, if we have a net operating income of $20,000 and we paid $200,000 for the property, we are getting a 10%, or a 10% cap rate on our money. Now, there's a little bit of an inverse relationship between cap rate and what a property's worth. So the idea is, as this percentage or the amount of cap rate that you have goes down, that's out there. So say in this same example, we looked at only getting an 8% cap rate. And in other words, interest rates in society have went down that people expect to get on their investment. Well, that makes your investment, if you go to sell it, worth more. So there's an inverse relationship. As cap rates come down, prices go up. As cap rates go up, prices go down. So what you see is here recently, when we've had interest rates go up in society, it has actually hurt or adversely affected the value of real estate portfolios, because as people want more and higher cap rates on their money, that means that they're not willing to pay as much money for the properties. So an example would be on this 200,000. If they were wanting to get 12% on their money, they would only be able to pay $180,000 for that property instead of the 200,000. On the other hand, if they wanted to get an 8% return, they would maybe be willing to pay as much as 220 for that property or pay more for it. That inverse relationship. So when cap rates go down, prices of real estate go up. When cap rates in society go up, prices in real estate go down. Those key figures are an important thing to be able to remember, and is really a confusing thing, because we normally think when interest rates go, or the rate goes up, that it's good. Well, what it amounts to, it is good every time our net operating income goes up. That's to our advantage. That we put that in our pocket no matter what happens with cap rates out in society. But what we're really wanting is our net operating income to go up, while at the same time cap rates in society go down. That makes our overall investment worth more. So that inverse relationship is an important thing for you to remember when looking at how to evaluate a piece of property you're looking at buying, and also how to evaluate the property as far as something you're looking to sell. Another key ratio that you use in commercial real estate investing is your debt service ratio. So what that would be, say for the similar example as previously, say we buy a property for $200,000. Our rents that we get off of that property are, let's say $2,650 a month. Okay? That is our gross monies that come out of it. In this case, let's say that our expenses for taxes, insurance, and other expenses average $650 a month, making our gross return minus expenses $2,000 a month. To further clarify, let's say that payment is $1,000 a month is what your payment is. Now, $1,000 a month payment is based upon you putting $50,000 down as your down payment and a mortgage of $150,000. Now, all of these numbers are going to be dependent upon the interest rates that you pay on the investment and the number of years that you borrow your mortgage for. But for simplicity's sake, this is what we're looking at. So in this particular case, if your payment is $1,000 a month and your gross rents before mortgage payment is $2,000, that would mean that you have roughly a 2 times debt service ratio. So that means that coming in, your gross rents minus your expenses for things like taxes, insurance, upkeep, property management, things such as that, is $2,000. That would mean that your 2 times, your debt service ratio is 2 times the amount that you pay in a payment. So that's one of the key things that people look at. This is also important when you go to the bank to potentially borrow money on that property, because if you're going to look at it, the banker's going to say, okay, how much additional income, how much money over and beyond the payment do they have coming off of this property? Because really, what are they trying to do? They're trying to determine what kind of risk you are with the properties that you currently have. How many things can you have go wrong? How many people can not pay you or have vacancies or things such as that before it creates a problem for you? Now, this gives us rise to a second ratio or another ratio that we can use off of these similar numbers, which is what your cash on cash return is. So cash on cash return is you take your gross rents minus your payment, which would be $1,000 a month. Okay, in this scenario, we have $2,650 as gross rents, $650 for taxes, insurance, and expenditures, gives us $2,000 in gross rents, minus our $1,000 mortgage payment, gives us $1,000 per month, which is our net operating income, net of all of our expenses to include our mortgage. So $1,000 a month times 12 months equals $12,000 a year that you have coming in net operating income. So if we look at cash on cash return, that is net operating income divided by cash invested in the property, which in this case would be $12,000 a year in net operating income divided by $50,000, which was our initial investment or down payment, which would give us, see, 10,000 would be 20%, an additional 2,000 would be an additional 2%. So we'd be looking at the 22%. Is that correct? 24% cash on cash return. Thus, what we're trying to figure out is by putting that $50,000 to begin with in this property, getting a mortgage for the other 150, paying that mortgage and paying all of our expenses, how much cash are we going to earn on that $50,000 of cash that we put in? That's what cash on cash return is. That's why real estate investing can make a lot of money for you in a very quick way, because where else can you get a 24% cash on cash return? That doesn't even take into account the fact that the accounting system that's out there right now allows you to depreciate the property, to depreciate other items. You get to be able to write off your mileage to and from your property. There's many tax advantaged reasons why it's important and makes sense to be a real estate investor. Thank you again for coming. Hopefully you find these ratios to be very helpful in you determining whether an investment makes sense for you or not. And these ratios and percentages can be utilized for scaled up for really big properties or taken down for even smaller ones. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, as it helps us with the YouTube algorithm.